All right, we now welcome to the program lifelong Indiana Hoosier fan Ryan Logue. Logue, appreciate you jumping on the program. We're continuing to get these Big Ten fans on the show because it's the best conference in basketball right now. But I will say, unfortunately, no real thanks to Indiana. But they got a huge fan base, and I appreciate you hopping on. Before we get into all of that, though, do us a favor, give the theater goers some background context on your fandom.
Yeah, so for me, essentially since birth, I grew up in Indiana. I went to IU, and we'll probably get into this later on the broadcast, but my dad went to IU and actually had, as a student manager for a year or two, some interactions with the basketball team. So, yeah, pretty much since birth, been a Hoosiers fan, and it's rough, to say the least. It's been rough for a while.
Well, so tell me about that. Why has it been rough? Obviously, we see the record, but I mean, just the past few years.
I'm just gonna be honest. To me, Indiana basketball quit in 2003, and 2002 was the last night team. He didn't coach it, but that was the last time his fingerprints was on Indiana University basketball. After that, the administration, rightfully so. I get wanting to move on from him. Frankly, he did some terrible things. He just did. But, I mean, that was the last time Indiana was any good at all. And they said, we're not going this direction. We're not going this route anymore. And it stopped being Indiana basketball essentially when he left. Because, I mean, I know Mike Davis was the coach of that team, but hell, Dane Fife might as well have been the player coach of that team, like Bill Russell that one year with the Celtics. Like, they honestly, Mike Davis was just there. It was Knight's team, and after that, Indiana basketball has never been the same. And
Logue, I want to ask you a couple questions about that later on in the episode, but I want to stop you right there because you make it, and I've known Logue for almost 10 years at this point, going way back to when I first met the Chief. And Logue, you make it seem like you're this massive victim having to root for Indiana basketball. The year you're referencing, you guys went to the national championship the previous year, and you're saying the team's dead. You were a 1 seed later on. You've been in the Elite Eight since then. I don't. Maybe it's because you have these unrealistic expectations from Bobby Knight from when he was winning all the titles way back when. But I don't think your program's dead. And explain that to me. Like, where do you get off thinking that it's all over with?
I didn't say it's all over. I said Indiana basketball, the way Indiana.
You said they quit.
I think that team quit yesterday. That looks like a team that quit. And what I mean by that is, and I get what you're saying, yeah. But I remember in law school, you said when the tournament started, you're like, yo, y'all going to get Syracuse in the Sweet 16, and you're done. That's it. Dion Waiters, that long zone going just wreak havoc. And I'm like, nah. I thought we were better than that because I assumed Tom Crean had, I don't know, watched basketball in the last 35 years and had maybe prepared for the zone defense against Syracuse.
Don't get him going on Tom Crean. Don't get him going.
I mean, it's just it's not the same anymore. And I'll be honest with you. We give a president 4 years to run the country. I don't think it's too much to ask an Indiana basketball coach to make the tournament once in 4 years when they let 70 teams in. They let 70 teams in the tournament.
Joe, hey, I know you're crowning the team dead this year, but Joe Lunardi has you guys as the last 4 in. Right now.
Oh, that's a hell of an accomplishment. They should probably build a statue to Archie, man. Fucking
all right,
Scrappy-Doo.
And
does that guy not look and talk like Scrappy-Doo? Y'all remember Scrappy-Doo, Scooby-Doo's little cousin? That's Archie. Yeah, I'm Archie, man. Just say.
Oh, he's cutting out.
Yeah. Hey, there's no Miller Brothers slander on this podcast, by the way. I just want to throw that out there. Well, actually, there might be. Okay. So, speaking of people like Archie or Tom Crean or Mike Davis, Kelvin Sampson, or even Dan Dockich in there for a couple of games, which coach were you, not retroactively, but when they actually got hired, which coach did you think had the best chance? Like, he's going to save the program.
How was I when Kelvin Sampson? I mean, I was still in high school when Kelvin Sampson got hired. He's by far the best we've hired. I mean, I can't hide from it. I was excited when we hired Archie, and when he got Romeo to come, I was like, I stayed up till like 1 a.m. writing that article for y'all's blog. And then the season started, and it's undeniable. It's just rough. I mean, that's bad. That's bad. My goodness. So,
I think when you look back on your accomplishments over the past 5 years or so, you'd say, graduating law school, passing the bar exam, opening a law office, and being a part of Romeo Langford agreeing to go to IU as the number 1 recruit in Indiana. You'd probably put that in the top 5, wouldn't you?
I'm going to act like I don't care, but I can't.
I know you care.
I clearly care. I wouldn't be like making jokes like this.
And for the listeners that don't know, Logue he's a classic call into radio show guy. If you listen to the Eric Ainge show or Sports Animal in Knoxville, Logue, hop in Tony Basilio. I don't know where you contribute, but you're always calling into radio shows, talking Tennessee football mainly. But we're not bringing you in for that today. We want to hear your stories about Bob Knight and your fandom.
Yeah. Well. Okay. Let's start with. I guess we'll lead off with. I picked out 3 Coach Knight stories that probably everyone knows that have kind of made him somewhat, obviously notorious. Not going to go with the chair one, but my 3 favorite Coach Knight stories that have been documented is the LSU fan confrontation that he had in 1981. So in 1981, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, IU and LSU, North Carolina, I can't remember the other team, made the Final Four. Isaiah Thomas was the point guard. And allegedly in a bar, Bob Knight got into a confrontation with an LSU Tiger fan, and Knight stuffed him in a trash can. And that's become, I kind of think it happened. And as an SEC and Big Ten guy, it's just a funny visual to me because LSU fans, they're known as these rowdy, crazy Cajuns. And that's allegedly what happened. I don't know if that's true.
Who wins in a fight? Orgeron or Bob Knight?
Oh, that's a good one. Coach O, I'd go O. Even in Knight's prime, I'd go Coach O. Coach O is thick, man. I mean, Knight's huge, but Coach O he's big, and he's Cajun crazy. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't want to fight him. Bob Knight's really mean, though. There is no denying that. You can never discount meanness, but Knight's also kind of a bully. So if someone stood up to him, I don't know how he'd react, but I'm going O, big time, Coach O in that one. But do you guys know about the Puerto Rican police officer incident in the Pan Am Games?
Enlighten us, please. Also, how do you know these stories? It's not like you're a Bob Knight contemporary.
You kind of grow up hearing some of them, and I did look up some of my favorites when you guys said you wanted me to come on and talk about Coach Knight. So in the Pan Am Games, and I don't even think they have that anymore, Coach Knight was coaching a team in the mid-'80s down there, and a Puerto Rican in Puerto Rico, and a police officer came on and allegedly told Coach Knight, hey, your time is up. You have to give up the floor. Well, Coach Knight wasn't done, and he allegedly assaulted the police officer. Because, I don't know, he just did. And the weird thing was there was talk of extradition at one time. According to, some of the articles I read, Puerto Rico, wanted to make an issue out of this and wanted to extradite Knight down to San Juan to face some sort of charges. It never happened, but that's my other one. But my personal favorite, because, a lot of them are awful, a lot of the stuff he did. But in terms of just funny, crazy things Coach Knight's alleged to have done, y'all know that Blue Chips, he was in the movie Blue Chips where, the big climax was Western University, Indiana, and then Nick Nolte's character with his attack of conscience spills the beans on the recruiting violation. Well, based on I read this in the Indianapolis Star fairly not that long ago. So they have Knight, some of his players, to play against this made up fictional Western University team. and they have a real crowd come into a high school gym in Indiana, and they say, all right, just play ball. But obviously at the end, Western University has to win. Well, Coach Knight wouldn't let them win. Like the story was like allegedly like Knight was coaching his team like it was a real game. And he was like, they're going to run that, backdoor to Shaq and they're going to lob it and don't let them, like, he wouldn't let them win. He wouldn't let them get the shots. And it took like hours because he kept having like Calbert Cheney and like Eric Anderson and like Bobby Hurley and people like that, like actually like stop the Western University players from doing whatever. So it like really screwed with things. And it was, to me, that's hilarious. That's a quintessential Knight story about just being kind of a jerk, but also being a brilliant basketball mind with that.
Those three stories are absolutely incredible. The Puerto Rican police officer, though, is easily my favorite because when you got Knight in a foreign country, just those two components, that's it. It's like a powder keg. I mean, so much can go wrong, I feel like, with Bob Knight in a foreign country.
Yeah.
Can you just picture Bob Knight going through like TSA or especially through like customs just to add to that story? He probably just was pissed off the entire time because I can't picture him like being patient and waiting for anything ever. And he was just probably waiting to explode at the first inconvenience that came his way.
Or just sightseeing. Imagine him like wandering around old San Juan in Puerto Rico trying to appreciate the fortress that used to be there. He probably doesn't give two shits.
I'd say that's true. That's another good one. Oh, like I guess for me, the greatness aspect of Coach Knight with his coaching abilities. Neon Badeau had a better record against Knight and IU than Shaq did. Like y'all know, Coach Knight ended Shaq's career in the NCAA tournament in the early '90s, and I know Mark probably wants to harp on this based on some of the stuff we talked about. The quintessential Bobby Knight masterpiece. It's not the national championships. It's not the undefeated teams. It's the 1985 Sweet 16 game against North Carolina. For people who are like, oh, he wasn't that good. He was this big jerk. Like, no, man, you need to YouTube that game. And the man was a savant. He's, to me, the only coach better is Coach K. And I'm not a big Wooden guy because y'all know Sam Gilbert. You know who that is? John Wooden cheated like hell. So to me, I don't think John Wooden's that great. I'd say Coach K number one and Knight number two for me, all-time coaches.
Yeah, Coach Wooden got the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 recruit every year, just from all over the country, just naturally. Naturally. No, there was nothing going on behind the scenes there or anything like that. Yeah, no. It just came from the far reaches of the country in the early 60s just because they'd heard of that guy. Right. No other particular reason other than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're missing Dan Dockich also within that list of the top 3 coaches of all time right there, if we're going to stay within the same tree. Because obviously Coach K and Bobby Knight, well, Coach K comes from that Bobby Knight tree. But, Dockich is there as well. And when he was an interim coach, he was phenomenal with you guys.
Yeah, take him back tomorrow.
Yeah, you picked Kelvin Sampson over him. I think that's an insult to Coach Dockich right there. Now an elite color commentator in the college basketball world. Elite.
Jesus H. Christ, dude. No, he's not. I would love for you to take back Dan Dockich because that means that we wouldn't have to listen to him every Saturday and Tuesday or whenever he's broadcasting complaining about a terrible screen down low. But it is funny that you bring up, Archie and also Bob Knight. I'm trying to rack my brain about two coaches that are just so polar opposite. I actually think we kind of saw it on Sunday with the Memphis game against UConn. You got Dan Hurley, who definitely takes charges like Kyle Lowry in an all-star game or in a pickup game versus Penny Hardaway, who's got a double-breasted suit, the Swedish shoes. I mean, those two are polar opposites. I'm trying to think, though, is there more of a polar opposite in terms of coaches with Bob Knight, this big, burly, angry, surly guy, versus Archie Miller, who you described as Scrappy Doo?
No, I mean, I will say, here's my one. The rumor floating around the message boards in the last hour I've been reading, kind of prepping for this, with John Beilein's impending doom, could IU make a move? kind of out of desperation. But John Beilein, does he have a landing spot? I don't know. But something that is going on behind the scenes that, and again, when I talk about the reason why Indiana is so hard for me to ever see getting back, they have to change some things administrationally. Indiana has what's called a Student Athlete Bill of Rights that Fred Glass implemented a few years ago. And there are rumors that Archie Miller's hamstrung on his ability to do certain things with this team. And it was created in response to not only Bobby Knight, but also Kevin Wilson with the stuff that happened with the football team. So I don't know. They got to get rid of that. But yeah, Archie, this is a bad look, man. I mean, he looks disinterested on the sidelines. It's not just that, it's not like, oh, he's not Bobby Knight. He's not Bobby Hurley. He's not, someone who's just an average coach right now. So, yeah.
Do you think that any of Indiana's kind of lack of success has to do, and no offense to any Indiana fan when I say this, but do you think that in the administration or the fans or any of those people are stuck in 1987? I almost think of it as like Nebraska football.
No,
you talk to Nebraska fans and they're like, oh yeah, GBR, black shirts, national championships. And it's like, well, yeah, those national championships were 30 years ago, like before we were alive. Yeah. Is Indiana kind of strikes me as some of the people in that fan base think like, oh yeah, well, why wouldn't recruits want to come to us? We're Indiana. Well, because Indiana hasn't won a championship since '87. And that's still better than the vast majority of schools. But do you think that plays into a factor of maybe like recruiting or just, maybe unrealistic expectations of people like Archie Miller or Tom Crean or any of those guys?
Yes and no, because yeah, it's not fair. Look, I don't think there's ever going to be another Bobby Knight at Indiana. I just don't think there's going to be. But dude, we're talking about making the tournament once a presidential administration. That's this is not the Knight tournament when they only had 32 teams in. What is it, 68 now, right? The 4 play-in. And you guys know as good as I do that if they're a bubble team like Indiana versus Wichita State, they want Indiana to get in so bad, and they still can't get in. It's not like I'm talking about being average. Indiana's not average. They're awful. With the exception of a few years, post 02, they're not a blue blood. They're not average. They're a below average program. So I don't think that's unrealistic to expect average or slightly above average.
So let me jump in here because a few episodes ago we were talking about some rivalries, and one rivalry that most people don't really focus on outside of the Midwest would be Indiana and Purdue. Now, because I've known you for a long time, I know where you come out on Purdue. You think they're nerds, you think you're this, you think they're that. Can you comment a little bit on the seriousness of that rivalry and just your general reaction towards students from Purdue?
Well, when I was growing up, it's not quite Alabama, Auburn, and it's not quite Ohio State. It's not the most intense one. The most intense one is Ohio State, Michigan. But we had watch parties. Like you would go somewhere as a kid growing up and watch the IU Purdue game. Goofy stuff. It was rare that whose mom or dad went to Indiana and or Purdue would go to Purdue and or Indiana. It's like you didn't do that. And yeah, it's an intense one. But I hate to say this, and you guys are gonna be shocked to hear me say this. I'd rather watch Purdue play than Indiana right now. And not just this year, but last year, the last couple of years.
Don't bring that up. You and I had a rough experience watching Purdue last year. For those that don't know, Loeb was boots on the ground with me in downtown Louisville when we had our hearts ripped out by Ryan Klein and Carson Edwards. That was a long drive back to Knoxville that day.
Yo, what insurance agency do you think Ryan Klein's working at in Indianapolis right now?
I don't know, but it might be the same one that Tom Coverdale works at currently,
That's right.
which I'm going to be bringing up later on.
That is a reference. Tom Coverdale 100% does sell insurance, I believe, in Noble.
Well, I guess if you're an Indiana guy and you live between Bloomington and West Lafayette and you need insurance, are you going to go to Tom Coverdale or are you going to go to Ryan Klein?
Oh, that's tough.
Let's say you're younger too. Like you don't really remember much about Tom Coverdale in 02.
Well, here's the thing. Have you seen Coverdale lately? If you're a kid, I don't think you'd believe he was an athlete. I mean, that dude is, my goodness, he's big. But
he could use a few sit-ups.
All right, hold on.
The legendary party is what the stories I've heard at Indiana University, that he was just an absolute hellraiser. But
so in an upset, Ryan Klein is an orthopedic sales rep.
Oh,
in Indy.
That's like Spike Albert. Very similar to him.
We keep that for the next Where Am I?
Okay, sorry.
Cat's out the bag on that. No, that's fine. I'm actually shocked because I feel like Klein's resume could only consist of that second half against Tennessee, and that should get him an NBA job.
He works for a great company called Smith and Nephew as well. So I can only imagine that they hire the finest Purdue grads.
Yeah, I also think we found the root of Logue's disdain for John Wooden. Keep forgetting John Wooden's a Purdue guy, so it's all right, Logue. You can come out and say it like that.
Yeah, look, I know I'm being funny. He's definitely on the Mount Rushmore of coaches, right? But I think his sainthood and his knee-jerk greatest coach ever for a lot of people is ridiculous. But definitely top 4 all time. Definitely Mount Rushmore.
Logue, being from the country and growing up on a farm, discussing Indiana Purdue, I feel like we always see these establishing shots during their games, either Purdue versus Indiana or their individual games. We always see these shots of like a barn with a hoop with no backboard, and I feel like sometimes that's just over dramatized. Is that the truth? Is that really how you and some other sharpshooters that I picture, like Ryan Klein? I don't know where he's from. He could very well just be an urban kid, but is that really the picture of truth in farm country Indiana?
It is where I grew up, but probably not where he grew up, and not everywhere. We had barns where we had hoops in the barn, but that obviously is not everybody. Even a state as rural as Indiana, only probably 8 to 10% of the population is a farmer. But I will say this: it is rare for a house not to have a hoop if they got teenage boys. But Ryan Klein probably had money and grew up shooting on a gorilla or whatever they call that. Those really nice goals. Like me, nah, man. We didn't have a gorilla. We had something in a barn. But
would you rather a kid from a barn or someone from like Indianapolis?
I just want to win at this point, man. I don't care. They don't even have to be from Indiana. You talking about? I don't care. I want Zion Williamson. I don't care. But all things equal, I don't know. A lot of good players from everywhere, man.
I agree. I didn't know if a fan went towards one type of basketball player in Indiana versus like a farm guy versus a city dweller. But I want to ask you real quick about Assembly Hall as well. So for my money, Logue, that and Allen Fieldhouse are the two best venues in college basketball when things are popping, when things are going right, when the team is good, and even when the game is good. I mean, we all remember the 2011 Christian Watford shot against Kentucky. In my estimation, probably the greatest court rush that I've seen. Describe Assembly Hall when it is going crazy.
Yeah. So an interesting thing about Assembly Hall, and this was great design by whoever designed it. So the ground level floor is kind of a traditional basketball gym, but the balcony is balcony seating, kind of like a auditorium, and I'm trying to position it in my hand right. So they're facing kind of at a slanted, I still mess that up. I'm sorry. They're facing a slanted thing. So
don't worry about it, Logue. This is a podcast, so nobody can see your hand. But
oh, well, shit. That is the most Hoosier thing yet. Like of all the Hoosier things we've talked about, that's got to be number one that I just did. But so you kind of sit facing down when you're in the balcony, which is where the really rowdy fans sit, and so your voice goes down and it just traps the noise, and it gets unbelievably loud in there because it's not small, but it's not that big compared to Rupp Arena. Let's see, definitely the Carrier Dome. Carrier Dome is probably twice the size of Assembly Hall, and even Thompson Bowling Arena in Knoxville is substantially bigger than Assembly Hall, but it's just designed in a certain way that the noise carries. And yeah, very loud. Even as bad as we've been, we tend to win in Bloomington.
So this is going to be a little outside of basketball, but do you remember when we were all in college, those videos that everybody came up with? It was like white kids rapping about their college basketball team. Does anyone remember those?
Even football team. I feel like
Yeah.
Oregon did that too, right?
Yeah. So, Lo, do you remember This is Indiana, which was kind of like, I think, one of the seminal videos that kind of kicked that all off? Can you give me a review on This is Indiana?
You want me to sing it? Oh, yeah. Let's see. Give me a second. I do remember that. This came out like I went to IU Tom Crean's first year. That was my first year at IU. And so I missed all the good stuff. Like the year after I graduated, the Watch Shot happened. And so, yeah, and that song came out, but it was, This is Indiana. Yeah, we do it big. Bossing on the Big Ten. You know what it is. Because this is IU, you, babe. This is IU, you. We got banners on the wall. And this is how we ball. Talking about the Hoosiers. Like, yeah, that was it was a little
Holy shit. I gotta jump in, right? Like, we gotta splice that right there. Where'd it go? Where the hell did you just go?
No.
You just dropped out of the broadcast.
Oh,
I mean,
damn
that's a mic drop. That's a mic drop right there. We'll bring him back in.
Yeah. Well, I can edit all this out right now.
He just dropped out.
that went way better than I was hoping.
Yeah, I've had like my audio cut out a bunch of times.
That was a great video too.
Let Sue bring him back.
Oh, I can't hear Nap. I can't hear Nap now either.
I can hear you guys just fine. I mean, I'm going to keep this broadcast going. So maybe,
Let me pop out and I'll pop back in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fucking Logan.
Yeah.
I got like two more questions. I got to ask him about the Gary, Indiana thing.
Yeah, I don't have any more questions. I'm
right.
piping in whenever I can at this point.
I love Logan, man. Think his boss like came or something?
No, I think pretty sure he just runs his own firm. You know?
Yo, can you send that to me?
Yes, I just got your text. Incredible song.
Did Logan seriously just fucking drop on us?
That's a hell of a mic
more
drop.
minutes.
There was like, Subi, I know that you've seen this video.
Well, I'm sure I have.
There was like an Indiana thick white chick in it, standing in front of the like the trophy case and shit.
Could be Wheelhouse.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, right.
Corn-fed.
All right. I can't even lie to you that it did get stuck in my head like one day when it came out. It was right around the Watford shot too. I'm like, oh, Indiana, they're like back. They got a rap song. There's like fat kids in the corn, like rapping about Christian Watford and shit.
Is Logan just not? Does his phone die or something?
I don't know. This is pretty good.
Oh, Logue.
Let's see.
Did you respond?
No. It's gone, dude.
Look. I'm assuming he was going on his like work computer. That's why he had to come in on his cell phone.
Has it been like cutting out for you guys as well? It's been cutting out every once in a while for me.
Logue, like every maybe very seldomly he would go out, but I don't know.
You might have to because I didn't hear a good chunk of one of his answers.
Well, if we can't get him back, Subi, you might just need to fade him out of the interview, like singing him out of the interview.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll have our what I'll do is.
What other questions did you guys have for him?
I only was going to ask him maybe like that. I was going to try and parlay that into was that your best moment at IU? Obviously it wasn't, but.
Yeah, I mean, it was like an awkward start of his top night moments right there. It was just dead air, and then he finally started going.
My Mike Davis nugget was he made the tournament just as many times at Texas Southern as he did at Indiana.
Really?
Good nugget. Yeah,
4 times each.
I gotta listen. I gotta hear this raw audio. See where I gotta edit, but this should be fun.
Yeah, you're gonna be in the lab for a while with this.
Yeah, that's fine.
Audio.
I mean, it's good stuff though. Shit, should we just
I'll try calling him right now.
Okay.
Yeah, because once we start on the actual talking, he'll time back in, and we'll have to do it all over again.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging.
Just straight to
His
voice.
phone,
I think his phone died.
His phone must have died.
Yeah, it's got to be a phone thing. Well,
Should we just proceed?
That's how you call that. Right? That's a class. Honestly, just proceed without it. Anything that was.
I assume Logue has a Twitter account, right?
No,
Dude, Logue is
No.
the most old school person.
Yeah.
So we can't even say that we get mic dropped by Logue, when we put the pod out there, or what?
It's just.
No, I'm literally gonna say it right now. Once we're still going, but
yeah.
All right, you guys good?
Yeah, go ahead.
I kind of got to take a piss right now. So.
Yeah, come on, just go ahead. This is about as good a time as any. Holy shit, Logue.
That is so funny. Dude, play that song.
I'm going to. Yeah, that's why I wanted you to send it to me.
But that would be, you know what we should do actually or I'll do it at least. I'll tag. I wonder if those guys still have a Twitter account.
Yeah, should. Oh, Logue, what a guy,
dude. So, how'd did you guys go out at all yesterday?
Oh, we got him. We got him back.
Oh,
did your phone die?
It did. I'm sorry, guys.
What a mic drop in the middle of This Is Indiana. No.
Hey, sorry, guys. My bad.
No,
all good. You're all good, dude.
Yo, classic Logue, as they would say. Sorry about that.
All right. So how many, we're still recording and stuff. I'll just edit all this out, Logue. So Nap, did you have any other questions?
1 second.
Okay.
Other questions? I don't know, just ask him about, his top 5 IU players from his lifetime and whether or not, 02 was the highlight of his life. That's really all I was going to get at. But I'll just pipe in with whatever you guys are saying.
No, it's fine. So how many? I'm just trying to think. How many more questions do each of you guys have?
I got nothing else. So
okay. So
I'll just sit back.
Okay, Shark, I'll go you, and then I have one more question, and then. But all right, we'll pick it up now. You guys good?
Yeah.
My bad.
What a rendition there from Logue. That's incredible. Shark, I know you got one more question for Logue. Go ahead, fire away.
Logie, give me your top 3 IU players of all time.
All time, let's see. Isaiah, number 1. I'd say Scott May was the best player on the 76 team, but Quinn Buckner was the captain. So I guess I'll go Scott May number 2, and number 3, Calvert Chaney would be my number. That'd be my number 3 in my lifetime. Oladipo, Jared Jeffries. No, well, Calvert Chaney was still in my lifetime, but
There you go. See, I walked right into my trap. I knew that what you were going to do was you're going to reference people from a much older generation from you because you're a historian of the game. You're the same way with college football. You're always going to react to that. And you played right into it. Well done. And what I also want to know is, so, you're what, a little bit over 30 at this point. So 2001, 2002, that was 01, 02, right? That was probably peak time for you being a young kid rooting for Indiana. Talk to me a little bit about the memory of that season and what could match the excitement that you had for a team that you supported going forward.
Oh, let's see. That year, there's 3 games that distinctly stand out to me from that year. The first one was early on in the year. Bill Self was still coaching at Illinois and had a very good team. Always had a good team at Illinois. And IU just beat the hell out of them in Assembly Hall. Beat them by like 30 points because they made like 23s in a game. And Jeff Newton brought the house down on a transition and one slam. And I remember watching that with my dad. That was a great memory of that season. And every Hoosier remembers where they were when Moye blocked Boozer. Every single Hoosier remembers where they were when not just that game, but that play. And honestly, it looked like Fife was going to screw it up. At the very end, that was one of the most highest of highs to the instant lowest of lows. But I remember watching that game with my family. That was great. And the Oklahoma game doesn't stand out that much of that time, but the Kent State game was a lot of fun too. Because again, same thing, made a shitload of threes. Coverdale rolled his ankle and kind of was even slower, if that's possible. And so that we thought was going to be a problem, but managed to beat Oklahoma, but couldn't stop Juan Dixon. Man, Juan Dixon, that was. Whatever happened to him, but that dude was a hell of a ball player. That was a great Maryland team. Lonnie Baxter and Chris Wilcox and Steve Blake, but Juan Dixon, man, we just couldn't stop him, and it was over when we ran into him. But that was a hell of a year.
Logue, you automatically are giving us cred with like the absolute encyclopedic type knowledge that you just dropped just now. And what was the one that you referenced? You said every single Hoosier fan knows where they were when blank happened. I want to test my Hoosier fans on this.
When AJ Moye blocked Carlos Boozer in
okay,
the Sweet 16.
Was that off the rebound of a missed free throw or something?
Nah, it was so. Indiana has slowly been coming back, slowly been coming back. And I think they're down like 3 or I can't remember, but like Jay Will drives, bounce passes it. Boozer's got a step. And, Boozer's 6'9" and built like a tank. AJ Moye was maybe 6'2", maybe. And he was a night recruit and just carved out of wood, played hard, tough as nails. My favorite player on that Indiana team by far, even though I didn't list him earlier. That's my favorite player from the 02 team. And he just comes out of nowhere and blocks Boozer, and it was a jump ball. And it was great. The place erupted, and you just kind of had the feeling that it was going to happen. And I was, Calvert Chaney's Final Four and Elite Eight. I mean, I remember those from YouTube, but I was like 6. I don't really remember them. So, like, that was it. That and the Watt shot. The Watt shot was every Hoosier remembers where they were when that happens. And or at least ones of my age. Those are the 2 that they will tell you where they were when those things happened.
Yeah, just to echo that for you, I remember where I was watching Indiana upset Duke that year, so I can't imagine what it'd be like being a diehard fan at the peak fan years, early teenage years, if anything, 12 to 14, somewhere in there. God damn, I'm jealous. Maybe you'll get that as a 30-year-old Vol fan one of these days in football.
So I guess you're asking what would come close to that. I was a big Colts fan with Peyton Manning. So when we won the Super Bowl, that was That was pretty cool. That's the only thing that come close to that I've experienced so far as a fan, because my adult team has become the Tennessee Vols football. Me and my girlfriend are season ticket holders. I'm going to spend probably $2,000 this year to be another season ticket holder again. So and that hasn't paid off yet, really.
No, it hasn't.
So the Colts run and the Indiana Pacers run when we lost Showtime Part 2 when it was just getting started. That was pretty sweet. And the 98 Eastern Conference Finals with Reggie and the Bulls. That's the only thing that could come close to that. But, so I'll get you guys out of here on this. Two things.
Well, hold on. Subi's got one more question for you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
Hang
ahead.
on. You get us out of the paint. We got you out.
His job. Come on, Lo.
My bad.
No, you're good. And we can make it as brief or as long as possible. I don't care. We got nowhere to go. But Logue,
I'll stay up all night talking this if y'all want to. I don't care. So
Kentucky and Calipari. Do you think they're big pussies for not scheduling you anymore?
no, I use beneath them, and I'm serious. Like, if we're gonna keep doing this, I wouldn't play us either. And he's kind of a pussy for doing the whole, well, I'm not going to Bloomington. I agree with him in a sense, because when I was growing up as a kid, it was always Indianapolis and Louisville, the neutral and neutral. But I get not wanting to come to Assembly Hall, but right now I'd say I wouldn't. Why does Kentucky need to play Indiana if they're going to keep this up? Like, I wouldn't play us either.
A self-aware fan. I respect that. Logue, what were your questions for us?
So when you guys think to keep doing the nostalgic Indiana thing and to keep doing the Bobby Knight thing and why I love him so much, when you guys think Big Ten basketball in the early 1990s, what comes to mind?
Fab Five.
Yeah, Fab
the
Five.
Fab Five, right? Now, they were like the best thing ever, right? What do you think their record was against Bobby Knight?
I think you're setting us up for an obvious response, so I'm assuming that they never beat Bobby Knight.
They got him one time. Knight went 5-1 with Calbert Chaney, Greg Graham, all those guys. 5-1 against the Fab Five. I mean, IU won the Big Ten 2 out of 3 of those years, and I mean, it's just
that's because Bob Knight probably absolutely hated those shorts and black socks and shoes.
Might have contributed. There's no doubt about it. Yeah.
That's a hell of a nugget. Logue, I'll get you out on this right now. When I first met you, you might have been one of the very few individuals that I met from Indiana. And I was just trying to create some conversation. And I asked you, hey, Logue, out of nowhere, I was like, tell me a little bit about Gary, Indiana. I don't know why the fuck I said that. Maybe because I knew the Jackson 5 was from there. And I don't know, Gary Harris might have been. I was like, oh, Gary Harris from Gary. Kind of cool. Do you remember exactly what you told me?
Good place to die or something like that.
Very close. Look, you looked me straight in the eye. You said, well, it's a great place to get murdered.
I kid. Look, Gary is what it is. Living in Tennessee now, it's our Memphis. It's Indiana's Memphis. Gary, though, I'll tell you this, man. When I was at IU, I went to a few parties with some guys from Gary. They're a lot of fun. I had a good time, but it's not the nicest place in the world. But good ball players come out of Gary, though. Several. Glenn Robinson's probably the best. E'Twaun Moore. There's too many to count. Dan Dockage is kind of from Gary, not really, but Dan
Dockage is definitely that guy that reps Gary. Like, it's the same people that say, I'm not just from Chicago. Like, I'm from the south side of Chicago. And they're not like where Derrick Rose is from or anything like that.
Yeah.
They're just on they're close to the south side.
He shut down Jordan. All right. So pay some respect and don't attack him in this way. All right. He shut down Jordan.
Happy birthday, Michael Jordan, by the way. Logue, thank you very much, man. Thank you for hopping on the program. This was fantastic. A lot of great insight into Bobby Knight.
I will be remiss, though. I got to tell you that, guys, this one story, and I'll get out of here. So, like I said, my dad was one of the student managers for Indiana when Bob Knight was his first year, and it happened to be Assembly Hall's first year being opened. And so, naturally, the coach before Knight was not real strict, would be a nice way of saying it. And so a lot of people tried to get in and see practice because, I guess the coach before you could go to practice. And so my dad's running around. Practice was incredibly regimented, everybody had their job to do. And Knight runs, my dad's running around. Knight yells at him, says, "Hey, come here." And I'm sure, he said it how Bobby Knight says everything, but he's like, get those people out of here. And so my dad runs up to wherever these guys are sitting, and there was a guy, they all had their red blazers on, old guys. And he goes, "Hey, sorry, y'all, Coach Knight says practices are closed. You guys got to leave." And they kind of look at each other and they're like, "You serious?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, Coach Knight says y'all got to get out. Y'all got to get out. I'm sorry." And so they leave, and my dad goes back doing his thing in practice. And the head manager comes over and he goes, "Do you know what you just did?" And my dad was like, "No." He said, "That was the president of Indiana." He said, "You just threw out the president and the dean or somebody like that." It was like three very important men, and they, yeah. And it was crazy. Knight hadn't coached a game yet at that time. That was his first practice at IU maybe, and he just told his boss, "Get the hell out," and told a 17-year-old freshman manager to throw the president of Indiana out of Assembly Hall, and he did it. So that to me, that's my all-time favorite Coach Knight story. But
that's incredible, Logue. I appreciate you sharing that with us, man. That was incredible.
Yeah. Well, hey guys, had a lot of fun. Thanks for letting me be a part of this. Yeah, I bet you can complain, but like typical Hoosier, I'm always going to watch. I'm going to complain, but I'm always going to watch. I'm always going to rock IU. Always going to rock the Vols. But no one bitches quite like a Hoosier when it comes to Indiana basketball. So thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for letting me play along.
Thank you, Logue. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Take it, Logue.
See you, bud.
Awesome, man. Thank you. I'm just going to keep this recording. You can drop and Taylor and Mark. We'll just fill in some of the other stuff that we have to do. But Logue, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Logue, you're good to log out now. We'll send you the link tomorrow for you to listen to, and then good. We got to get you on in the future as well.
Man. Anytime, guys. Yeah. Hopefully, come football season, Sue, man, you got to get down to another football game.
Yeah, we got to make it. This is the year. I'm coming back this year.
No, for real. Tennessee is real close, brother. I don't feel that way at all about any of my other teams. Tennessee is close. For real.
I know you're on the front lines for us, Logue. But hey, good to see you. Congrats on the new office there, and we'll link up tomorrow. All right.
Thanks, brother.
See you, man. I love that guy.
I thought he was just going to stay on the line the entire
time. we could have kept him on.
Do the whole show. He pipes in here. There's another one about Bobby. All right. So
I'll get you guys out on this.
Yeah.
All right. So all I had for this one was talk a little bit about that Twitter spat you had with the Providence guys.
Me or Taylor?
Both of you.
Okay.
Yeah. Keith
I think
Appling,
I was simultaneously disagreeing and agreeing with them at the same time.
You were, yeah. Keith Appling, we'll just talk real quick. Keith Appling facing heroin charges with Fox, Sharif O'Neal to LSU, and then talk a little bit about Memphis basketball. That work?
I didn't read that article yet, by the way. So
it's fine.
Okay,
No, it's
I
fine.
didn't. Yeah.
The sentiment is everybody's picking on us. Why are they picking on us? We had injuries and disqualifications. Don't give up on that.
Yeah,
Cool.
sure.
All right, you guys good?
Yeah.
You're listening to Theater in College Hoops. I'm Subi. Alongside me is Taylor Damel and the Shark. We're brought to you by Dash Radio and the Barn Burner Podcast Network. Go subscribe on whichever device you use. I actually heard Chris Hernandez former guard from Stanford. He subscribes, so you should as well. Actually, we're about 16 years and a week removed from one of the greatest games in Maples Pavilion when Stanford, then number 2, I believe, hit almost a half court shot against Arizona with Tiger Woods in the building. Tiger Woods in like a white turtleneck backward hat. Incredible look. Just YouTube that. But Chris Hernandez, he subscribes. You should as well. Check out the website at thebarnburner.com. That's the-barnburner.com. And make sure to follow us on Twitter at CBB Theater. You should also follow me at Subi232 to find out where the Theat is. Make sure to follow Taylor at Taylor Damel and the Shark at _Shark_BB. Let's open the curtains. All right, gentlemen, another week and another Twitter spat, this time with the Providence guys. Providence, of course, beat Sharks boys, Seton Hall, and the Crier, who we've had on the program, friend of the program, listen to his podcast, the Providence Crier podcast, and another friend of the program, Brendan O'Rourke, a Friar. And you guys were entered into a Twitter feud. Now, a little bit of context. It started with O'Rourke chirping me because I tweeted about a Missouri State dunk. And I was admittedly radio silent on Saturday when Providence beat Seton Hall. Now, Shark and I gave our responses and our excuses, basically saying like we were out, we were kind of drunk, too many games. And I've tweeted this. Once my whole 30 non-drinking ban was lifted, no way I was going to be able to get to every single game. But then it escalated. So I'll give you guys a chance to expand a little bit. Taylor, starting with you on the Twitter feud.
Well, I started off agreeing with our boy Brendan there that Shark has too many boys, too many teams. I believe I said that Shark has 174 teams making the tournament at this point, which is more than 50% of the D1 college basketball world. Then Bohr really came back strong with a firing a shot at the Shark about not rooting for his own teams in BC and Tennessee, which has been a point of contention on this program, I believe, even before my time was official here. And then it morphed into me talking about how shitty Providence basketball is, and then disagreeing with those guys as well. It was there was a lot to take in there. Shark, how did you feel about that? I noticed that Shark was subtweeting us. He wasn't actually participating in the conversation. He was subtweeting Oscar Wilde quotes while this conversation was going on.
Well, you're going to learn this, and I'm kind of glad you got exposure to the absolute swine that Providence fans are, because you can't look them right in the eye. You know, that you can't engage with them directly because they're going to snap at you like a bat out of hell. I mean, they're the worst type of fans in the world. Prior to the Philadelphia Eagles winning a Super Bowl, the perfect comparison to Providence basketball fans would be Philly fans. Just so much delusional, irrational confidence in what their program is. They've never done anything recently. They haven't done anything, yet their fans carry themselves as if they are consistently in the Final Four. Like, Taylor, you just got wrapped into exactly what these fans do. They think that we owe them some type of respect for the way that they perform. They're like 2 games over 500 this year. They were up by 40 points in the first 10 minutes of the game. And if that game was 2 minutes longer on Saturday night, they would have lost by 12. Alpha Diallo just happened to hit like 7 straight shots, and all of a sudden we're comparing him to like, DeMar DeRozan on the court. Like this team and their fan base are scum. They're all in your face, antagonistic. This is what they look like too. You see Providence fans running around like if they ever go to a Boston College game, or you see them, they're sprinkled all throughout the Northeast. They all wear like a tucked in long sleeve Providence tee. They got black slick back hair. They're all probably about 5'6", and they all want to fight just immediately. All right, they're like a bunch of Tim Donahues running around in a pack, screaming at you, trying to bait you into a fight. And that's why I'm over on the side tweeting Oscar Wilde, because I don't want to engage with these guys. Like, it was a random Sunday night. Everyone's having a good night. And then all of a sudden I look at my phone and I got 19 notifications from these hillbillies telling me that I apparently I like the top 25. It's not even a good argument. I don't like the top 25. The whole year I've been saying I'm on 4 teams: Seton Hall, Oregon, Wisconsin, Maryland. I would pick those 4 over the current top 4 right now. Yet you want to tell me that I love every team in the tournament? It's stupid. I'm sorry I've been right. I'm sorry I've been on the money. I'm sorry my team isn't 2 games over 500 and I suck and I have to make up for a very, let's call it what it is, underwhelming season by celebrating a win on a Saturday night like it somehow validates everything that I've ever supported with Ed Cooley. At the end of the day, you haven't been to a Sweet 16. At the end of the day, that you're irrelevant. You suck. You're no better than a give me some random school in the year like Duquesne. Duquesne's had more success in the tournament.
LaSalle went to a Sweet 16.
Well, even better, right there. The Leon Rice, the doctor that was the coach there. You're LaSalle, some Catholic school in the Northeast. Fuck out of here.
Who was the guy for LaSalle that had the South Philly floater a couple of years ago?
Just called him the South Philly floater guy. He had
that guy was awesome.
hysterical braids. Yeah.
My personal favorite part about this was them telling us that their goal was 19 wins, as if they've strung together 5 wins at any point this year. Especially they have to play like 3 more ranked teams. It's like, you know what? We've got a shot in this game if we literally just had 15 other players on the roster, and maybe a different head coach. It's like, at what point did you guys string together 5 wins this season that gave you a hope that it would happen now? 0. Out of here.
They also seem to think that the Dunkin' Donuts Center has like this mythical proportions where if you play there, like you're going into the gates of hell. Like, I've been in the Dunk. I saw a Josh Groban concert in the Dunk this past summer. It was probably more wild in that Josh Groban concert than when they're playing against St. John's, who they lost to at home not too recently. So get the fuck out of here with your mystique that you have surrounding the Dunk.
So I was 100% thinking you were going to say, I saw a Josh Groban concert like 15 years ago, the Dunk. You saw this last summer? Like, Josh Groban still around?
Yeah, it was moving.
So is it fair then to say that Rhode Island we know what little man syndrome is, right? Napoleonic syndrome. Does Rhode Island have little state syndrome? Because this isn't the first Rhode Island team that's chirped us for not giving them enough attention. We got chirped by Rhodey Ram and Justin Hascard earlier in the year, and we gave them the kiss of Titch. They've gone on to do some really good things. But then Providence comes at us because I'm tweeting about Missouri State. Sorry if I'm diversifying my bonds over here. And it just seems like, what am I going to get next? Johnson and Wales coming at me? Brown University going to come at me? It feels like there's a little state syndrome with Rhode Island.
I feel like we've been generally supportive of Rhode Island basketball.
We have.
No, you have. And that's why I'm doing what I can to defend you right now, because you have been. Nobody in the rest of the country talks about these 2 teams except for us 3 on here. And we're talking about them, yet they're still pissed off that we're talking about it.
Seriously, we had like 5 episodes in a row where we brought up Providence basketball for no reason.
They're little poodles nipping at you after feeding them a little treat. They just keep nipping. It's ridiculous.
Well, as always, open invite to Brendan O'Rourke and also the Crier to come in and discuss this at length. But there's no good way to segue this, so I'm just going to do a hard pivot. I'm talking like the sharpest V-cut you've ever seen. Keith Appling facing heroin charges? The hell happened there? Well, it's just been a bad 2020 for Michigan State, and apparently it's ex-players as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's like playing in Europe, I think, now too. So it's not like... Oh,
he's still playing?
Yeah, he plays for, and excuse me, no offense to this team if I mispronounce their name, Palincanestro Placentina.
Look, if it's not Panathinaikos or whatever with Patino, there's no point in knowing the pronunciation.
Yeah, it doesn't even have a linked Wikipedia page. So yeah, apparently he's got to slang some dope, I guess, just to make ends meet.
He was just arraigned, so let's not say that he's guilty of anything here. It could just be a wrong place, wrong time, but I do agree that you never want your name showing up in that type of headline that he has here.
Can we dub you the Roger Cossack of this program, by the way?
Can I mean, you complete all my dreams while you're at it right there? That would be ideal.
All right. So you didn't necessarily get to be the head legal counsel or advisor for ESPN, but you are on Titch.
Yeah, dream come true.
But yes, Keith Appling, shocking news there. He's only been a few years removed from college basketball.
Yeah, he's only like 28 years old. It's like,
yeah,
dude, hang with a better crowd or like figure out what you're doing here.
Michigan State basketball needs to get their house in order. Another news and note: Sharif O'Neal going to LSU, where Big Daddy played. Sharif has had a few teams that have been interested in him. He committed to Arizona, decommitted, then went to UCLA, transferred from UCLA. I can only assume because Mick Cronin just is not the type of coach that he wants to play for. But I do ultimately think that this is a good move, more so for LSU and Will Wade. It's kind of like a low risk, high reward type deal because LSU is still a good program. Wade has proven that he can get talent and also turn out talent with Naz Reid, Skylar Mays, Trey Waters, those kind of guys. So I like this move more so for LSU, and I hope Sharif, gets back to playing at a high level, especially after that heart condition that he was able to overcome.
I was pretty excited for Sharif to come to Arizona, but mainly because just he was Shaq's son. I mean, to be completely honest with you, I think he's thought of as a much better basketball player than he is just because he's Shaq's son. He's really good, don't get me wrong, but I think people expected him to be like Shaq, right? It's kind of like being Michael Jordan's son, although he is better than all of Michael Jordan's sons. But yeah, overall, very happy for him because, his heart condition and everything. He was dealt kind of a shitty hand other than being the son of like a future billionaire. Other than that part of things, he was dealt kind of a shitty hand in terms of his health and how things played out in his recruitment. So hope he succeeds at LSU.
Fulkerson versus Sharif. Could that be a thing? Is Fulkerson still going to be around for Tennessee?
He will still be around. Hopefully we're not relying as much on Fulkerson next year as we do this year, but the guy just finds a way to get buckets. So Sharif better bring his game against Fulky next year.
And lastly, before we get to our interview with Indiana superfan Ryan Logue, I want to talk real quick about Memphis. What a weird time for Memphis fans and the basketball team. So the Grizzlies right now are sitting at the 8th seed in the West, but the college team, the Tigers, are truly sputtering and could very well miss the tournament. I think they're out right now, projected. But let's go back into the summertime. If you told Grizzly fans, like, hey, here in February, your pro team is going to be in position to make the playoffs, or the postseason, but your college team isn't, I think they'd slap you. It's kind of a wild switch up that's happened down there in Memphis. And since accountability 2020 is our motto, our theme, I'd like to say that I think all three of us were kind of right and kind of wrong. So I think Taylor and I had said that the Wiseman loss could really send their tournament success into something left to be desired. We were saying that they could still make the tournament, but without Wiseman, like I think Taylor, you had mentioned them being a potential Elite 8 team. I thought they were Sweet 16. I don't think that's going to happen even if they do make the tournament. But Shark, you had also labeled them when the Wiseman thing happened. You said, well, hold on, they're not completely dead just yet. A few more games went along and they were fine. They were winning games. And I said, look, they're still staying afloat. Good for Penny. But Shark, you had also then said after those few games, like, no, they're not that good of a team. They haven't beat anyone. I think the turning point game was going to be Wichita State. And so just a very odd season in Memphis. And I urge you guys to read our guy, Barnburner Bro, Zach. He had a great piece on the state of Memphis basketball and Penny Hardaway. Just wanted to get your thoughts now that we're here in February and their tournament hopes are on the brink.
I definitely recall, those conversations that we had. When they played Tennessee early in the year, they went into Knoxville and they beat them. That was an emotional win for them. Wiseman wasn't playing. It kind of, at the time, everyone thought it would be a win that could catapult them into the post-Wiseman era. The rest of the team can play. And if you watch the game, it was pretty obvious that both teams kind of suck this year. Like even though Memphis was able to squirt that one out at the end, Tennessee, they're not that good. Memphis plays good defense, but it isn't going to be there. And when you looked at their body of work at the time, they didn't really have any good wins. And it's kind of been revealed itself throughout the rest of the year. Now, all of that is to say, which one thing that I think, it's easy to pick on Memphis because they went into the season with just these very arrogant expectations that they were going to have. They were preseason ranked. They had the talent, so I guess it's justified from that regard. But Yeah, there wasn't, I guess, an inherent ability, and this is me being a Tennessee fan, to root against them. You didn't want them to be successful this quickly. So it is kind of nice to see them have a tough year, but it's really not their fault. The Wiseman thing happens. Achua missed a few games. Quinones, with his short shorts, was out for a while. So they've kind of just been taking hit after hit. And Penny's kept it somewhat afloat, so it's not fair to judge him based off of this season alone.
Goodwill Hunting.
Are we worried about maybe what the future holds for Memphis basketball? Not this year, but as it progresses forward, just because of maybe the negative connotation that has kind of come with this year? Or do we think that this is more like shit happens and things will be okay next year?
I don't know enough about their recruiting class for next year. I'm assuming it's still strong just because Penny, he's still kind of in that honeymoon phase of his job there. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that, but I don't know. I chalk this year up to shoulder shrug.
Well, and it's probably an easy sell for him to any recruit that has a question. Just say like, "Oh man, we got fucked with the whole, James Wiseman thing." Well, that's not, we couldn't do anything about that. So that's probably an easy sell. Now, if you're still on like year 3 or 4 trying to make that same excuse, probably not going to work. But you probably get a 1-year pass at least from the recruiting standpoint to say, "Hey, we could nothing we could do about it."
Yeah.
Tough times down in Memphis. I don't know why they don't go to Precious Achua down the stretch more often. Like they go with Boogie Ellis and Quinones, and you got a lottery pick, a consensus lottery pick, and they just don't go to them.
Yeah, right. I think what was it, the Barn Burner main account, or was it Backdoor Cut? One of the podcasts had a great tweet that I believe we retweeted about Memphis, the Memphis Grizzlies having a better season than the University of Memphis. And that was, nobody would have expected that coming into this year. I thought that was a pretty interesting tweet on how the basketball year in Memphis has turned out.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the topic of this conversation.
Well, no, I just mean that, like, it just to elaborate on that, you wouldn't have expected it's that notable that like Ja Morant and those guys have been that good and above 500. And yes, thank you.
I can't pass up opportunities to be a dick sometimes. I'm sorry.
Thank you for making me feel like I'm on the Dan Le Batard show with Stu Guys, who does that like every day. If you guys heard of that James Wiseman was out, did you guys know about that?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, if we're going to be Le Batard and Stugotz, I wouldn't mind their notoriety, their fame, and success. So I'll take that, actually.
Sure.
So before we get to our interview now with Logue, a quick message from the Barn Burner Podcast Network. All right, we want to thank Logue again for shedding some hysterical stories, incredible stories about Bob Knight, his fandom with Indiana, and, of course, he gave us a free concert. Incredible pipes on Logue there. But let's go ahead and round it out now with some segments, starting with Where Am I? Shark.
Where Am I? It was alluded to a little bit in the interview with Logue, which, I mean, I don't know how Subi's going to be working overtime editing that thing because I don't know how he's going to plan on splicing that thing. But Logue, in the middle of it, after he started singing, hung up the phone. Took like 20 minutes to get him back on there. Guy, he could have talked all night. So a lot of late nights with me, the Chief, and Logue, where we're putting together like this manifesto of college basketball teams. We got to get him back on the show. But anyways, I alluded to it in our conversation with Logue. My Where Am I is actually going to be Tom Coverville. Most of us should remember him. Early memories of the early 2000s. A vintage-looking Indiana basketball player, short, chubby, red hair, lethal from 3, tough as nails, does the little things. Is Mr. Basketball in Indiana. Perfect Bob Knight type player. This is his Where Am I? First of all, we poke fun at Logue for thinking that the audience could see him while he's talking on a podcast. You need to stop what you're doing right now and just Google a picture of Tom Coverville because it looks like about 17 bad weekends in a row streamlined together. A lot of beers, a lot of wings, puffy face. It's awesome. He looks like an Indiana fan, but he also happens to be one of the perfect Indiana basketball players. So look at that photo. But what he's been up to is actually a very successful career in the insurance industry. He's bounced around to various different places. After graduating, in the early 2000s. He took a shot at coaching for a little bit. He tried to play a little bit longer. That didn't work out too well. And then he's been in the insurance industry for a long time. Various different companies, Shepherd Insurance, American Family Insurance, and now he's at AAA. So he has had a nice career, making sure that people in his community that no doubt supported him for a long time are able to have the proper insurance in case things go south in their lives.
Tom Coverdale. That's a deep cut right there. So good for Coverdale. Glad we were able to catch up on him. Let's go to hugs. Taylor, who's your hug for?
These pictures of Coverdale are incredible, by the way. My hug is for one of Shark's very favorite players in college basketball, and that's a friend of the program, Marcus Howard. He became the Big East all-time leading scorer this last week, and apparently, again, to become one of the best college basketball conferences leading scorer. It's all just must be 4 years of empty numbers, I guess. Shark, question for you. Do you think that Jimmer Fredette was a good scorer in college basketball?
I do.
Okay, good, because Marcus Howard is only 17 points behind him in all-time career points. And in fact, he will get into the top 25 in all-time basketball points scored before the season is out this year. So, friend of the program for at least Subi and myself, Marcus Howard, hug to him for becoming the Big East all-time leading scorer.
So real quick, like you had mentioned, I am part of the Howard Hive, but I was thinking when he hit that last three to then become the conference's all-time leading scorer, it kind of went to the Sharks' point. It was against Butler, right? He hit that three when they were down 4. It was like the most perfect example of an empty stat.
So look, he's got great numbers. All right, I'm not going to attack you on that, but let me ask this question: if you had to pick a point guard from the Big East to run your team in March, when would you pick Marcus Howard out of Big East point guards?
I'd go Powell over him.
Well, I'd go Powell, and I think about Kamar Baldwin in a March Madness game. I think about Baldwin right there. I think about Gillespie. Like they're like Howard, you're the all-time leading. Well, like he should unanimously be the number 1 pick right there. But for whatever reason, there's something in the back of your head telling you, there's something about this guy I just don't really want him. And
Well, I think
is my point. That little thing in the back of your head, that's me saying this about Howard.
Okay. I think that, I guess it just comes down to personal preference. Like if I want a guy that's going to hit a big shot in the tournament, that's, I think, him though Kamar Baldwin did just hit a game winner last week. I'd still probably go Marcus Howard, but he's not necessarily going to run the team as well as some of those other guys. But at the same time, he doesn't necessarily have this team to run like some of those other guys, like he would have maybe last year. Who are the brothers? Why can't I think of them?
Hauser.
The Hauser brothers. Yeah, the Hauser brothers. That'd be a whole different story if they were here this year.
I think also part of the Marcus Howard narrative is that they were upset. I put that in air quotes because of the seeding last year in the first round. And then you look at the team that they lost to in Murray State and you just look at that name across the chest. And then you have to take a step back and realize, wait a minute, they have probably they had the rookie of the year in the NBA.
Right.
So there's no real shame in losing to fucking Ja Morant.
Well, I think kind of though, to further that my point or our point that they're not empty stats. I mean, Marquette is still ranked 19th right now. And I don't think anyone or very few people would have had them ranked in the top 20 at this point this year after losing everything they did last year. And why are they ranked in the top 20? Marcus Howard. Yeah, right. So.
Shark, any hugs?
Yeah, my hug is to John Beilein, who the report is out that he is getting close to calling that little fling with the Cleveland Cavs and calling that one short. So my hug goes out to him. We'll see where he lands. I saw a shocking report that like Boston College could be the landing spot for John Beilein. Did I have too many Bombay Sapphires this weekend? I mean, is this real life? I mean, like one of the most successful college coaches of this century wants to go to Chestnut Hill.
I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of better coaching jobs that open up in the next couple months.
But that's what I thought too. That's what I thought too. They're linking him. They're somehow linking this guy to it. I can't believe it. Also, Marcus Howard's never won a March Madness game ever. But This tournament 2 years ago. First year he lost in the first round to South Carolina. Last year lost to John Morant. Jimmer Fredette with a 3 seed that 1 year. So I was going to get back to my rebuttal on that point. I'm going to use it during my hug segment.
No worries.
I was just going to say, hang on. So we already covered the John Morant thing. Was that the South Carolina team that went to the Final Four?
It was actually.
How are you going to beat those two teams?
Yeah,
you can't beat them.
Because they're a 7 seed and they're favored, and they should win that game. But
Team of Destiny and NBA Rookie of the Year.
How are you going to beat Sindarius Thornwell? Okay.
I don't know. Well, maybe he can make the tournament the following year, but he didn't do that.
Can't do it. Okay, hold on. Going back to John Beilein, without putting too much effort into it, if John Beilein was a college basketball coach right now, he'd be top 10, 15 coaches in the country?
Easily
10?
15.
I'd say top 5, dude.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Shark. That's why he's not going to end up at BC, is because...
Dude, I'm with you. Like, I don't think...
Okay.
That's why I'm shocked right now.
Because I bet you there's at least one good college basketball school out there that would consider firing their pretty good coach already.
Lowe mentioned Indiana.
Yeah, right. Texas, Shaka Smart's going to get fired. I think that Shaka Smart's going to get fired at Texas, and Texas, I think, would probably just back up the Brinks truck to
probably
sign Beilein.
Here's the thing, and Sue, I'm going to set you up for one right here. The problem with Beilein is his age. Like, if he's walking into a club and Daryl from The Office is the bouncer at that club, Sue, what's he going to say?
You're old as fuck. I want to let you in, but you're old as fuck.
Thank you very much.
No problem. My only little ginseng that I want to add on this is that I love that this is happening to Cleveland, man. I mean, it's my favorite city. The ineptitude of the city and their teams never ceases to amaze me. And I truly, truly believe that LeBron James, when he's done playing, should not have to pony up any cash to own that team. The mere fact that in X amount of years, whatever he was with the Cavs, that he covered up this complete dysfunction is nothing short of remarkable. Not only covered it up, I mean, if he won 45 to 50 games each year, that takes a Herculean effort. He won titles, got them to like 3 or 4 straight NBA Finals appearances, whatever it was. LeBron James deserves to own that team whenever he is good and ready. So that's kind of the biggest thing that I took away from this. And I mean, the ineptitude, I love it. All right, hugs for me. I'll end it with 2 real quick ones. Akok for UConn suffered an Achilles injury within the first minute or so against Memphis. He was in tears. Absolutely terrible scenario. I feel bad for him. So hopefully, quick recovery for Akok. And then also Billy Donovan. Billy Donovan returned for the first time in nearly 5 years to Gainesville because the court is being named after him. I actually feel like that's incredibly late for Billy Donovan. The guy is a legend in Gainesville, and I wanted to pose a question. We actually lost Taylor somehow. I'm assuming he's coming back here shortly, but I wanted to pose a question here, Shark, to you. Is Billy Donovan a basketball Hall of Famer? I personally think he is, because we look at the track record. He's got 2 titles at Florida, 1987 Final Four at Providence. There you go, PC. Good hug for you. And a relatively successful NBA coaching career. He's coached in Western Conference Finals. So does Billy Donovan's resume get him to the Naismith Hall of Fame?
Without a doubt. And I think what gets him in is the fact that he's got a court named after him and he's not even 55 years old. That was my takeaway from this, is like, he's pretty young. He can live the next half of his life knowing that he has a court named after him. When did like Coach K get his, because that court's named after Coach K, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. When did that happen? Probably pretty recently. Coach K's like 102.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, he's able to see the fruits of his labor, and all the Florida guys were back, and some of the names were hysterical. I think my favorite name was Teddy Dupay. I think that was like 99, 2000 type Florida team. But hug to Billy Donovan. Want to thank Logue again for jumping on the program. We will see you next time here on Theater and College Hoops. Enjoy the rest of the week.